It's about half the chapter. An interesting thing is, and yes, you didn't get my email with the new version.
Oh, I did, but I used the old one because it was already there.
Yeah.
It's not very good, is it?
When I went to Chicago, we did this at the University of Chicago, and the morning I'm sitting there and I said, well, here's our script, and she said, well, let's make a little cutting, and I sent her a cutting of the script, and she said to me, and I just want to say this to set up the problem, she said to me, okay, I don't want to read these lines in the cutting that I had made, which is in the book. And I said, well, why? And she says, this is all an email, of course, from the University of Chicago to the University of Chicago. She says, because I would never speak like that. And she's talking about some remarks that I put in her mouth concerning the people who attacked her at the seminar.
No, it was actually, it was about law and economics. It was
Well, that's
something
right.
about economists.
It was the economists, the Chicago
and these are
economists.
views that I do take on, argumentatively, but with a lot of respect and friendliness. And he had me saying something rather coarse and insulting about them. And so I just didn't feel, especially there, that I was not going to say
That's
that.
right. About the Chicago School of Economists, who have been responsible for a lot of problems.
See, I mean, let me say something. I felt when I got this that this was a tremendous creative work, and I was torn in the following way, that I did want to correct certain things, because I just, I mean, particularly about the eating meat, because I feel very strongly about that, and it was just kind of revolting to me to have that picture of me. And so, on the other hand, I didn't want to cramp his style. So my solution to that, it was sort of ad hoc solution, I didn't think it out, was to really only try to correct things that I thought either they were just simply offensive to me in a deep way, or I thought that there was some implausibility in it. So I did say to him from the beginning, you know, I would not stay and talk to this person. You've got to motivate it better. I mean, as an actress, I still have this problem playing the scene. You know, why does she stick around? Because I've had many students, but you know, thinking about the Blacksburg event, I'm thinking about that English professor who had the disturbed student who wrote the violent play. Now, she stuck with him because he was in her class, and she had to talk to him, and she had to supervise his work. But even then, she was terrified, and she reported him to the campus police and all of that. And I think I myself would have simply not made the appointment in the first place, probably. But if I had, I would have, you know, I wouldn't have gone all the way to Union Square. I probably would have just sat right near there, you know, and I would have left very quickly. So that I did feel, I had to say. But then the things I didn't, I mean, there were things that I felt didn't seem strange to me that I didn't want to correct, particularly references to Kierkegaard, who's not a philosopher I didn't have much to do with, but I thought, gee, you know, he's a fine philosopher, there's nothing wrong with that, it's just that I wouldn't, in fact. And I don't talk much about the eros agape distinction. I think I talk about different types of love, and erotic love, and friendly love, and so on, but agape, I guess it's too much in the sphere of Christian ethics, and it's just not the period that I'm referring to. And so, but, you know, those things I thought, fine, let him express his own ideas through this character. It doesn't really matter if the philosophy is correct, so long as it's something I'm not embarrassed about. And then there was this other thing about the economists, where I guess I didn't feel at the time that there was anything wrong with having that view on the page. It's just that I wouldn't have expressed it with that lack of civility, and we had just been talking in the law school about civility, and so I was very sensitive to that issue when you came, and so I did correct it for the reading. But I guess my dilemma all along was about not wanting to go too far into his creative space, and I just thought it would be wrong to tell him how to represent me, because this is a work of art and a work of fiction.
And the paradox is that I feel guilty about it, and like I did something bad, and Martha feels it's cool, go have fun, you know. It's this is art. This is you're free to do what you want.
And I think, you know, it's also because it was fundamentally respectful of me and my ideas. And there was a short story that Richard Stern once wrote in which I appear as a character, not under my own name, but everyone who knew could recognize certain broad facts about my life. And it was he had met me once, and we had had an argument about Joyce Carol Oates, whom I like very much, and he doesn't. And he obviously formed a negative view of me and just decided to represent me in the worst possible light as a kind of, a marriage wrecker of a very cynical and unfeeling kind. And I just, I never read the story. I've just heard from others that I don't want to read it and I won't read it. And but this was totally different. This was about my ideas, first of all. It was not something about my personal life. Well, a little bit, but it was what was out there, as you say, on the internet, and so I couldn't complain about that. And it was respectful. It was trying to grapple with the ideas that I really care about.
And of course that's true, and finally I was able to go ahead and write this letter because I in fact have a whole shelf of Martha Nussbaum books in my house, and I find them very important, and I wrote out of respect, as I do a lot of the kind of references in my books, as a kind of homage to the people that have inspired me. The question, however, if I can put it in most general terms, and we've stated our position, but this is where you come in, and this is, I hope, what this evening is about, is a discussion about this. The question is, what are the rights and the limits of what an author is morally permitted to do to a character, and that is to a real person, and that is contained in what that person says, what that person does, how the person is characterized, something about the respect for the character. Are there limits? Did this guy who wrote the short story transcend limits that were permissible? Did I transcend? And I want to bring into the discussion, in fact, our surprised guest, and Martha knows about this, and that is this person, Joel Meltz, who's standing right here, who is sitting. Not the next novel I have coming out, but the one I have coming out in the spring, takes this issue that was just a small incident in Golem Song and expands it into an entire work which looks at the question of a character being captured by a novelist, embedded and life defined by his or her appearance in someone else's novel, saying someone else's lines, doing someone, etc., etc. Now Joel, Joel lives in Boston, so it's nice that he could be here, but Joel's story is exactly that story. Joel was the subject of a cult novel, fairly famous cult novel that at the moment I don't want to name, but maybe we will. I don't know what my editor thinks about talking about this. A fairly famous cult novel of the 70s, and was captured by the author and has since had a very, I would say at the least, and I don't know, how Joel wants to describe it, but has had a very adversarial relationship both to his portrayal in the book and to the author who did this to him. And I'm putting, myself in the guilt position of the author, and I'm not, of course, although I did grab onto Joel's predicament, wrote a completely different cult novel, and had, the character, the book is called The Annotated Nose. So I wrote a cult novel by somebody else, called William Hundwasser, and I wrote Hundwasser's novel called The Nose, and then I wrote the characters' annotations in the right-hand pages on all the wrong things and all the, the mistakes and all the misrepresentation of Hundwasser in the book. And that's sort of my variation on Joel's story. But I don't know, Joel, if you want to talk about your experience of having been captured and, let's just put it...
Well, once you get me talking, it's hard to stop
Okay,
me, so
we'll stop.
I should be... If there are any questions,
No.
that would be a better...
I'm a little confused.